So we have really been working with the topic of how to use Reiki. I would say the biggest umbrella of it is for mind management. We started with listening skills, and then this month we've gone deep diving into Reiki for effective decision making so that you can have clarity of mind and discernment about the decisions that you have to make every day, and how to use Reiki for that. From the everyday little decisions to make. I had one yesterday. I was cracking up because I was sharing it in the animal Reiki class, and it was just as simple as it was lunchtime, and do I go for a walk or do I do the dishes? Basic. And I actually thought, okay, activate Reiki and it's going to help me decide. And I decided to do the dishes. But actually it was really nice to have the kitchen clean. So, and I still walked later. Anyway, from those kinds of decisions all the way to, do I leave my job? Do I move? To innovative decisions. Do I write a book? Do I make a website? Am I going to be on social media? All the way to health and what you're going to do for your health. I mean, you don't need me to describe all the decisions that you make. So one of the weeks we talked about decision making and how to use Reiki in a general term. And then we also talked about using Reiki to help you in cultivating self-trust in your decision making, and really being able to discern within you through your own inner awareness, your own inner guidance, through your own self-trust about your own decision making. Being able to use Reiki to help you assess, to discern, and to have clarity of mind. Then the next week, we talked about using Reiki to help with decision fatigue. Because sometimes in the middle of lives we're living, we have so many decisions to make, from the little to the big, to as simple as, I always use the example of the cereal aisle in the grocery store, which I can make it easily because now at my age, it's only me. But if you've got kids and you've got decisions to make in the cereal aisle, like, they go with you. So things from something as small as that to the very big decisions that we have to make, the quantities of decisions sometimes can lead to decision fatigue. And then sometimes the feeling kind of wobbled by not having a lot of decisions to make. That can happen too, where there's not things going on. It can be kind of disorienting when suddenly there's not a lot to decide about. So we talked about how Reiki can help you with your decision fatigue, and decision management is what it really is. And then last week, we talked about activating your perception triad. So your perception triad is the awareness that you have a gut brain, you have a heart brain, and a head brain. Helping those to align and helping you be able to access you from all of those perspectives, that perception triad. What does your gut have to say? What does your heart have to say? What does your head have to say? Your gut instincts. What are your gut instincts about your perceptions, about your decision? Do you feel excited or are you anxious about an opportunity or a very serious decision you have to make? What's your gut tell you about it? And then when you are listening to your heart brain, what do your heart emotions? Let's say we're using the example of a new job. What does your gut say about it? What does your heart say about it? What decision are you making that you have passions and values about? You have past experiences with. And then engaging in your head brain, where you get into the logic, into the analytics, the pros and cons, the practical aspects, personal growth. Where are you? What's your timing? That was another big one that really came in, is the awareness and decision making also really involves timing. So sometimes your timing needs to be immediate. Sometimes your timing is a couple weeks from now. Sometimes it's a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. And so your decision making along the way. So what we wanted to talk about today is putting it all together and using Reiki to put it all together. So the first step that we talked about for a whole month, last month, was about your listening abilities. And listening is the overall perception, because it can be perception as well. Listening within yourself, how do you hear you, your inner truth, your inner guidance, so that the discernment and self-trust is there. Listening to others, sometimes seeking advice, looking at all perceptions of a decision that you have to make. And so listening, research, we're going to talk about that, spiritual research, next month. And, being able to look at your decision making through your listening skills. And really being able to pay attention, then moving into allowing your imagination to also operate, gut brain too, to go into the how do you listen to you. And the importance of active listening in decision making is, of course, typically you are going to need to assess your situation. You're going to need to assess the decision. Be able to move into that heart brain where your emotions now balance, and you can listen with your heart and balanced emotions. So talking about all of this is, how do we use Reiki for it? What does Reiki do? Each of the symbols will contribute to balance, clarity. It can contribute to discernment. And at the same time, there are some that you may find that you're called to that are going to help you uniquely your way. In my case, I might use the mental emotional symbol a lot for this, because it brings to me clarity of mind and discernment. And that symbol actually activates your authentic intuition imagination, your instincts, and your inner awareness. So it moves you into an inner awareness where now you can also observe your external awareness. So what's going on around you. And when you've moved into your inner awareness, now you actually are hearing yourself. So what are you perceiving now about the external circumstances? Sometimes the external circumstances are for really fun things too. So it's not always about, fixing your life and the moments of difficulty or challenge or crisis even, or trauma, which it definitely does all of that. But sometimes it's as simple as, what vacation do I want to take? And how do I do all that? And all the decisions that might be around that. Often for me, it's very much about innovation and possibilities and opportunities. Which one to take? Which one not to take? Which one's so glad I didn't take? Glad I decided to listen and not do that one. Retrospect. And the retrospect can be brought into today, and that mental emotional symbol can take you into all of those perceptions. The distance symbol for me is the heart-to-heart connection, because it's beyond time and space. So it takes me inward, like I can imagine that distance symbol as a bridge of light that's going inward, and it's going from the external circumstances to kind of my personality, what I think about it. And I imagine it taking me all the way into the depths of my heart brain, the soul wisdom in my gut brain, and then the logical information in my head brain, and pulls it all together to really then come through my heart. Because the heart brain is really important. And so often in these kinds of practices, we talk about, well, you need to drop out of your head and into your heart. And at the same time, logic is important. Analytics are important. Discernment is important. Past experiences, predicting future experiences can be helpful to at least use discernment and look at it. The other thing that happens with Reiki, now we talk about the power symbol. What it does is it comes in and releases the blocks. So any blocks that you're experiencing from your heart brain, and maybe those past experiences that may skew your decision making because of a past experience, or it may empower one because the past experience indicates this is a good choice moving forward. So it could be either. And what the energy does is it works on what is relevant to you specifically. And even if it is an empowerment moment, the Reiki will still come in and do the things to release what is a limitation in any way. Sometimes those limitations come in from what we call our culturally created self. So the world we're born into, the generation, the gender, our families, our geographical location, the culture we're born into, all the other factors of what we are born into can influence our decision making. So Reiki will come in, and I've only talked about the first three Usui symbols, but we also have, many of you here have a variety of master symbols or additional symbols. Absolutely, for those of you working with the Karuna Reiki symbols, those are very specifically working in these areas of assisting your consciousness. So Nosa, for instance, and in Karuna, we can say the names of the symbols. So Nosa, for instance, activates your authentic intellect. That's your everything, your heart brain, your head brain, your gut brain, your intuition, all of the things of what you came in with in this lifetime. So Reiki, with whatever Reiki energy you're working with, it knows how to do what it does. So even though I will share symbols that I work with, the Reiki energy is doing the work, and the symbols have shown me who's doing what, but it isn't dependent on me knowing that for the Reiki to go ahead and do that work anyway. I've only been able to observe what it's doing. I'm not making it happen. So if you are new with Reiki, or maybe sometimes even as we've gone through so much Reiki, we just activate Reiki without thinking about symbols at all. And that is totally possible and as effective as working with the symbol. But I also like to talk about my experience with the energies and how they directly relate to some of the topics that we're talking about. So some of the ways that you might use those symbols would be self-Reiki. Place your hands on your gut. Place your hands right there in your solar plexus and just breathe deeply. And sometimes you only have a minute. Other times you have 10 minutes. Other times you have an hour. Reiki is not dependent on the time spent. The experience can be different when you spend more time. The energy itself works whether you spend that 1 minute or the hour, because Reiki will help you according to the circumstance you're in. Sometimes decision making is like, you need to make it right now. This is immediate, right now. I need to make this decision. So you may need to immediately, right now, bring in Reiki to help you, just through a flash of a thought, inviting it. And it doesn't have to be specific. It's just activating the intention, because what happens is the energy entrains you to its frequency. So you are stating an intention that right now I'm activating this frequency, this energy of a higher thought, higher consciousness, and I'm inviting my body, my mind, my gut, my heart, my mind, my ability to listen, my ability to hear myself and trust myself in this one flash of a moment. And then other times, you may have the time to actually put your hands over your heart and spend some time in your decision making, because it's not urgent. Well, that word just popped in for me to talk about. I didn't know at all that I was going to talk about this, so I'm listening as I'm hearing it. Because what'll happen for me is these words will highlight. As a practitioner, one of the things that I have seen that needs to be healed a lot in people, particularly if you have been in a very fast-moving pace, that decisions seem urgent. And urgency actually becomes its own energy and your own pace, that you're moving in a pace of urgency. Sometimes you are in urgency, and Reiki can help you be in that energy and be clear while you're in the energy, decision making in the energy when things are urgent. At the same time, sometimes after the fact, or because of life experience, because of things moving at a certain pace, urgency has become a way of feeling, a way of engaging. And so I have actually used and seen the effectiveness of Reiki in releasing the cords and connectors that are attached to urgency that is not useful. It's not beneficial. It's a feeling of a pace you have to move within. It's an energy of a mindset that just becomes how things are done and how things are working for you. And so again, this is one of those things that Reiki showed me what it was doing. I didn't know that, a lot of times people need to have the cords and connectors released from states of urgency that they've been in, so they can move at a more natural pace, move in their decision making without that sense of urgency driving behind it. And I would say that that is commonly, I mean, not common as much as some things that happen all the time in a session, but it's fairly common that I will see Reiki come in and release the cords, the connectors, any attachments to that urgency, the reason that it's there, the energy of it. And remember, the way Reiki always works is whatever happened for that urgency to be there, the cords are released, they're healed, the energy is released and healed, and the burden of it is lifted from you. So now the energy comes back in and it heals within your body any of the places where any of those attachments were, cords were. So it always, for me, it shows up in metaphorical imagery. So that's how my intuition works, but it's all metaphorical. So it'll even show up as those cords. I had one the other day that was released, and it was like this kind of giant hole in the person that the cord had made, and watching the light come in and just heal the physical body, the cellular body, heal all the interdimensional levels of it, and make it whole and bring it back to the person's actual body, bring it back to their wholeness, and on the multidimensional levels. So it activates a level of sovereignty. So now when you are in your sovereignty, taking it back to decision making, now you have clarity of you. And when that urgency is moved out, it brings in a new level of assessment, analyzing, discernment, to clarity of mind, your ability to listen at a different level, be able to listen to you, listen to the circumstance, listen to the decision making, and then to actually be able to make a decision through a clear mind. The other thing that does is it brings in self-trust. And self-trust is another one as a practitioner. There's a whole lot of reasons that our self-trust has been injured or blocked or hidden or limited. And Reiki specifically both heals our self-trust, but it also, in that same way that it heals that cord, It's going to heal the cords to whatever caused the injury to the self-trust. And then it's going to bring in the light that activates the self-trust that's already within you. It doesn't get broken or lost. It's still there. It can simply get hidden. It's like somewhere inside. And now the light comes in, shines the light on it, and it wakes it up. And suddenly now it's shining through you for you first, for you to be able to hear you. So all of the Reiki energies do this. And when I talk about things this way, my training is to observe what Reiki's doing. And I do that through the Reiki journeys. We do those all the time in this group, and they're on our YouTube channel. We teach that in our next step classes. And that's those year-long, there's 3 one-year-long classes and the 12 heavens class, it's a year. But the piece that's really important to remember is Reiki is not dependent on your ability to observe what it's doing. I only know what it's doing because I can observe it. It's doing what it does because it knows how to do what it does, and it's not dependent on our skill level with it or ability to deserve it or to observe it. It all works because it already works and you've agreed to it. So the decision making, again, practical tips for it is bringing in Reiki to just simply even have an awareness that you are consciously activating your clarity of mind, using Reiki to do that, activating your ability to listen into the depths of you or the decisions that you're making. Sometimes it's not that heavy, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to make a decision. I'm going to do the dishes or I'm going to walk. So it doesn't have to be going into the depths of me. It's just, okay, help me make this decision. I'm very Pisces and Libra. So decisions sometimes can be like, okay, all the choices are good. So how do I pick? So something sometimes as simple as, okay, pick one and help me do that is helpful. So the daily practices, that are really helpful, either on the fly or for a length of time, just giving yourself some self-Reiki. It's always helpful if you have big ones and you're still struggling with clarity. Have a session from somebody else. And Danny is a great practitioner, by the way. So anybody looking for that, just got to give Danny a plug. Actually, I don't mean it that way. It's actually really true. She's an excellent practitioner. So sometimes you do need help from somebody else. The other thing that we're going to talk about next month is learning more in depth about spiritual guidance and what that is, your own spirit's guidance, as well as external sources of spiritual guidance. And of course, all of that ties together with decision making too. Inviting Reiki to come in and just invite that. And a lot of times I've learned that I just can't figure it out. Like it's not figurable for me. And so I will truly just say, okay, Reiki, I receive. And I stop trying to figure it out and just moving into the allowing of the receiving to finally bring me to the moment and the timing that clarity comes in. So you can think about Reiki in the middle of anything. Again, Reiki on the fly is very effective, and Reiki isn't dependent on the time we spend. It can change our experience of it. I mean, we love the deep inner experiences of Reiki. And then maybe even before you go to bed, just inviting Reiki to come in. Sometimes you may dream it. Many of you do dream your clarity of mind. Doesn't quite work for me that way, but anyway, or maybe it does and I haven't learned that yet. So with all of that said, pulling together all of the different things we've talked about this last month in decision making and why even it's a Reiki topic is because Reiki really helps us in our daily life. It's practical, applicable spirituality. Doesn't have to be defined by the word spiritual. That's how my mind wraps around it. It can be a biofield, but how do you connect into it deeply? How do you make the depth of that connection for practical daily life decisions, practical daily life living, how to navigate this world of being human? And with so many unprecedented events happening every day, mind management is very helpful. So I know for myself, it helps me, and what I hear from everybody else, they're like, oh, I love this topic because it really is helpful to think about it and to know there's a conscious way to make conscious choices, conscious decision. And Reiki will make it easier. Okay, well, what I'd like to do now is every symbol used before giving Reiki, or can we choose depending on the need? Mary Lynn, you can definitely do both. So her question was, is every symbol used before giving Reiki, or can we choose depending on the need? So even the activation of Reiki symbols is really a personal choice and preference and what you have going in the moment. So if I'm in a professional setting giving a Reiki session, typically I'm going to activate the symbols. And I can do that through thought. I can draw them all. I have Usui and Holy Fire and World Peace and Tree of Life and Karuna Reiki. So if I were to take the time to draw every single one of them, now I'm in that drawing for 10 minutes of the session. So I also allow myself to let the symbols come through that I observe myself drawing. So that's how I know. Like I'll observe myself drawing them. I draw them over the client. I draw them in the room, put them on the walls around me. I place them above, below me. There are many times I do that on the fly. So let's say it's not a professional session, but I need Reiki in that moment for that moment right then. Then I just think all of it. And I don't have to think word for word for word for word. I can also do one thought for all of it. Like, okay, Reiki on. Mrs. Takata always taught that. Just Reiki on. And she also would say Reiki off. I never do Reiki off. To me, I just leave it on all the time. But that, again, is a personal preference. So all of the different ways work. And we have things like tools like drawing the symbols, because we are physical beings and it gives us a physical technique and tool to experience ourselves activating the symbols. It's for us, the Reiki energy comes to us because we've invited it. It doesn't require us to draw it. I draw it a lot because I like the way it feels. I like the experience of drawing the symbols. And also, if my mind is really scattered, I can draw the symbols, and it is the most efficient way for me to bring in my scattered attention and bring me into what I'm doing right now. So it can be really helpful that way too. So it's really up to you how you use the symbols and which symbols you use. And absolutely allow them to show you, because when you think about which symbols to use, usually what's happening is the symbol itself is telling you, I'm the one doing the work right now. and you are observing that. Sometimes you're going to think, oh, I know, I'm going to use the mental emotional symbol right here. Well, it's the mental emotional symbol giving you that intuition. So we're always observing it because it knows how to do what it does in all the different ways we need to use it and can use it, and the different ways we like to use it. Lots of right ways to do all of it.